Hello Nintendo Wii here, welcome back to RetroBreak. This week marks the release of Kingdom Hearts 3, a game that a lot of people have been waiting for since 2006. It's gone through development hell, but it's finally came out the other side. Also in the news recently was the cancellation and the restarting of Metroid Prime 4 for the Nintendo Switch, another game which seems to have gone through development hell so far. So I thought today would make a great opportunity to talk about a few games that went through development hell and actually came out the other side as a finished product. I've also enlisted the help of my good friend Zach from the Beard Gaming, and he's going to be discussing a game called Ride to Hell Retribution for the Xbox 360. So I really hope you enjoy the video. Let's get started by taking a look at Duke Nukem Forever. As I'm sure a lot of you already know, Duke Nukem Forever had a very troubled development. It was first announced in 1997 as a sequel to the 96 game Duke Nukem 3D.
I was born to rock the world.
They showed off the first trailer at E3 in 1998, originally being made in the Quake 2 engine. The fan reaction at the time was very good, but in the background something very bad was happening. Unfortunately, at that time in 1998, the Quake 2 engine was becoming quite old and Unreal had just released their new engine to compete with it. The devs of Duke Nukem, wanting to make the most impressive game they could, decided to start over from scratch with the new Unreal engine instead. In 2001, another trailer was shown off at E3, now in Unreal, and it actually looked amazing. If it came out today, I think the game would still go down really well. Unfortunately, around that time there was a lot of new first-person shooters coming out, and the dev team didn't feel like they could compete with what they had at the moment. So, instead of releasing the game as it was, they kept trying to add more and more features to the game, to try and make it the best it could possibly be. Unfortunately, that kind of backfired. Eventually, in 2003, another very short trailer was shown off, and 3D Realms ended it with the quote, "It's ready when it's ready." That was the first real sign of trouble. Nothing else was heard from the game for a long time, but much later in 2009, 3D Realms was downsized and they lost the majority of the developers for the game. Gearbox Software took over development for the game in 2010 to try and salvage whatever gameplay was left by that point. Finally, 1 year later in 2011, the game was released on PC, PS3 and Xbox 360. Overall, it's absolutely insane. It took 15 years for the game to be completed. So, after all that time, how does it hold up? Well, according to Duke himself, it better be good.
What about the game, Duke? Was it any good?
Yeah, but after 12 fucking years, it should be.
Well, anytime you want to play again, just let us know.
Unfortunately, the game is incredibly average. I don't think it's as bad as some of the reviews at the time made it out to be, but also I wasn't waiting patiently 15 years for it to come out, so my expectations weren't quite as sky high as some of the fans at the time.
Alright, time for my reward.
From what I've played of it, it seems like a fairly fun first-person shooter. There's nothing incredibly unique or interesting about it though. One thing I do enjoy is all the different interactive objects throughout the world, which you actually have to interact with to increase your ego. It breaks the game up a bit and it can actually be quite funny.
You want to touch it, don't you?
Of course, being a Duke Nukem game, it's also full of adult humour.
Oh my god, Duke, thank you. I'll go down with you anytime.
And plenty of gore, but it all adds to the charm, I think. You can't really complain. To be honest, I kind of enjoyed what I played so far, and I really don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. But I can see why people were disappointed after having to wait 15 long, hard years for its release. So, if any of you guys have played Duke Nukem Forever, let me know in the comments what you thought of it. Were you actually excited about it when they first announced it? And how did you feel when it finally got released? Anyway, that's it for Duke Nukem Forever. Now it's Zach's turn to tell us all about a game called Ride to Hell Retribution.
Having been first announced in 2008, Ride to Hell Retribution was finally released in June of 2013. Was the wait worth it? Well, not only is it known to be one of the worst games of its generation, but one of the worst games ever released. What the hell happened? Well, originally Deep Silver Vienna, partnering with U Technics, set out to create an open world biker game with loads of different vehicles and weapons to use, tied together with a 1960s theme. Under the name Ride to Hell, the game made steady progress with development. Unfortunately, Deep Silver quietly cancelled the game in 2010, removing any trace of it from its website. They also shut down a Deep Silver Vienna studio. The game would resurface in 2013 with Eutechnics handling all of the development. With the team stretched thin and trying to salvage previous development, contents and features were either scrapped or dumbed down, such as a reduction to the open world and turning bike combat into quicktime events. With a release later that year, the game received a disastrous reception. Universally panned by critics and public alike. Now, knowing how bad this game really is, I've luckily avoided it. Until now. This is for you, Nick. I hope my torture is worth it. So, what makes this game so bad? Well, I could ramble all day about what's wrong with this game. There's an abundance of loading screens. The graphics are worse than a PS2 game, and the voice acting isn't that much better.
Jake, on your feet!
The bike combat consists of being locked in place and having to complete these quicktime events. You can't even crash your bike, you just bounce off objects. The game is utterly boring. And don't even get me started on those truly awful sex scenes. The game somehow managed to become a whole lot worse than the pre-release footage from 2009. Not only was Ride to Hell Retribution damaging for Deep Silver, it was harming other games as well. Developers of Road Redemption were worried about players confusing their game with this one. And then you have Road Rage 2, which came out in 2017. Ultimately, if you're planning to release a biker racing combat game and it's not amazing, I'd forget it. We've got GTA 4 The Lost and the Damned, and that's all we need for the time being.
Thank you, Zach. That's really unfortunate that the game didn't turn out as well as it looked in the alpha build. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know in the comments some of the games that you'd waited a long time for. Did they live up to your expectations or not? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe, check out my channel for loads more videos, and of course, as always, I'll see you next week. Goodbye.